What's up, Variant fam? Last week we covered Absolute Batman issue 17, which gave us the first full appearance of Absolute Poison Ivy. If you read the comic for yourself, which you definitely should, or you watched our episode on it, you already know she is straight up nightmare fuel. But the end of issue 17 also left us with a crazy cliffhanger with the reveal of the Absolute Court of Owls. But it wasn't just a reveal for the Court of Owls themselves, no. It was also revealed that Martha Wayne, Bruce's mother, was a member of the Court of Owls at some point in the past, and she reinitiates contact with them for some unknown reason. And that is exactly where Absolute Batman issue 18 picks up. So we're just gonna jump right in. But I'll also mention real quick, if you didn't have a chance to pick up a first print copy of either Absolute Batman 17 or Absolute Batman 18, we have a very limited amount of both issues up on our website, variantcomics.com, and you can pick those up right now. But again, it's a very limited amount. These comics are in high demand and it's first come, first serve. So if you weren't able to get a first print copy of Absolute Batman 17 or Absolute Batman 18 before they sold out and you want one for your collection, head over to variantcomics.com right now and grab one before they're gone. All right, so Absolute Batman 18 opens up outside Lincoln, New Mexico, where we find Martha Wayne, who has just apparently landed a plane in the middle of the desert and is walking down a desert highway. She's trying to contact Bruce, but the signal on her phone is crap, so she just says, "Bruce, it's Mom. I'm not sure if this message will go through, but I'm going to be out of town for a bit. There are some things I need to take care of. Just know that you'll always be my little boy, and I love you, and don't you ever change for anyone, you hear me? This world might..." But before she can finish leaving her message, the phone disconnects. And that's definitely the kind of voicemail you want to get from your mother. Just know that you'll always be my little boy, don't ever change, as if they're saying goodbye. That wouldn't make you worry at all. Anyway, right after the phone call drops off, a tactical vehicle comes flying in from behind her, and when the back doors open, we see that it's two members of the Court of Owls, and they say to Martha, "We watch you at your hearth, we watch you in bed. Speak not a whispered word of us," to which Martha responds by saying, "Or we'll send the Talon for your head." At which point the Court of Owl members throw a bag over Martha's head, toss her in the truck, and take off, which is just a crazy way to start this issue. But it only gets crazier from here, my friends, because on the very next page we return to Absolute Batman's battle against Poison Ivy, and we see that Poison Ivy is still trying to get Batman to give in and become one of her creatures. She's telling him, "Come now, Batman, don't fight, there's no point." Alfred then comes in over comm saying, "Kid, the density of the spores up there, that cowl comes off, you'll have moments before you're compromised." But Batman just cuts him off saying, "Then it won't come off. Now find me a weakness," as he uses his Chainsaw Man-like gauntlets to lob the head off another one of Absolute Poison Ivy's creatures. But Alfred is kind of panicking because he can see that Batman is being attacked from all sides. So he just starts yelling, "Look out, on your right, no, on your left, and on your right and your left." But this of course is not helpful for Batman, so he just says, "Weaknesses, Pennyworth, freaking weaknesses." So Alfred takes a breath, focuses, and says, "She's made of plant, animal, insect, bacteria. Which part has a vulnerability? I'm looking, kid, but if there's a soft spot to her, I'm not seeing it." We then flip the page to find another flashback of Poison Ivy's origin story, which is being narrated by Pamela herself, just as it started in issue 17. And as we get images of Pamela's mother hugging her daughter's heart in a jar, the narration tells us this is all that's left of her. That's what the doctors tell my mother. The chemical fire in the lab reached nearly 9,000 degrees, as hot as a young star. It's a miracle that anything at all survived, they say. And yet, my heart appears perfectly intact. My mother asks if it's alive. They tell her no, but that's not true. And all of this is referencing a scene we saw play out in issue 17, where Pamela was intentionally locked inside of a lab that was set on fire and murdered. Anyway, Pamela's narration goes on to say, "I want to scream to her that I'm more alive inside this container than I've ever been, connected to primal forces I don't understand yet, but can feel as colors, green and red and black." My mother turns to go, and in that moment, I hate the glass separating us more than I've ever hated anything. But not just the glass, the powerful men who put it there, the men who did this to me, all because I wanted to go further in my research, do more. But this is what they do, those men, my enemies, our enemies, put walls everywhere, walls of every kind, dividing us from each other, from nature, from truth, dividing up everything, all for profit, for their own tiny private kingdom. I will get out. I will find a way. Ivy climbs the highest walls. As my mother walks away, I reach for her. I can sense the black creeping through her. She will die this afternoon, sitting on a bench, waiting for the bus back to the hospice. No one one will notice her for almost 3 days. When the morgue thaws her out, parts of her fall off. Her fingers, her breasts, her nose, like rotted fruit. But now, in this moment, I reach and reach with everything I have. And suddenly, something new grows. Something that can't be hurt anymore. Which is a pretty freaking heartbreaking backstory.
But before we see what happens next, you guys remember my guy Fozzie? He's my lovable Bernese mountain beast. And as you can imagine, this borderline Sasquatch loves to eat, and more specifically, he loves real food, which is where the Farmer's Dog, today's sponsor, comes in. The Farmer's Dog offers fresh food plans made from real meat and vegetables that are designed to help dogs maintain a healthy weight, which means we get to keep Fozzie living his best life because dogs at a healthy weight can live up to 2.5 years longer. I mean, let's be honest, it's probably pretty obvious, but I'm a fan of good food myself. Chill out in the comments. But that being the case, I want the same for my favorite drool machine here. And since we switched to the Farmer's Dog, Fozzie absolutely houses his meals, which has been a nice change of pace because he was a really picky eater when it came to the highly processed dog foods. But the fresh human grade food has him licking the bottom of his bowl. Plus, it's pre-portioned and ready for your dog to eat and conveniently delivered right to your door, making it easy and healthy for both of us. So ditch the kibble for a better, healthier option from the Farmer's Dog and get 60% off your first box of fresh, healthy dog food by using our link in the description below. Plus, you get 24/7 customer support. Again, just click that link below. Your furry friend will thank you.
Alright, so from here we return to the fight between Batman and Poison Ivy as she's telling him, "Why are you fighting me, Batman? We're on the same side." But Batman just ignores her and is trying to reestablish contact with Pennyworth. However, Poison Ivy smashes through the chainsaw gauntlet on Batman's left arm as she tells him, "He's not here anymore, I'm afraid. Rare forms of bacteria can disrupt radio signals, as can some bird calls and even dolphin songs, all of which I'm emitting as we speak. No weaknesses, just strengths." She then begins to come apart and morph again into some crazy body horror-like creature as she continues to say, "You can be so much more too. You just need to embrace it." Which, you know, who wouldn't accept that invitation? You'd have to be crazy to turn that down. Anyway, we turn the page to find Bruce's portion of these flashbacks. Because just like in Absolute 17, which was part 1 of this 7th Kingdom story arc, the overall story is broken into 3 parts. The first being flashbacks of Absolute Poison Ivy's origin narrated by Poison Ivy herself. Then the second is what's going on in the present and Absolute Batman's battle against Poison Ivy. But the third piece is a series of flashbacks showing Bruce trying to reestablish his friendship with Waylon, Ozzy, Harvey, and Eddie. And these are narrated by Batman's combat journal, which here tells us, "Don't, Bruce. Don't accept it. Don't let yourself go there." As we see Bruce return to the sewers looking for Waylon. The journal goes on to say, "That sound, the roar you keep hearing echoing from deep inside the tunnels, it's him changing back, not becoming something worse." We then get panels showing him back at the Iceberg Lounge and Eddie's lab, desperately trying to get both of them to answer him, but once again with no success. He then tries stopping by Harvey's law office only to find a maintenance man scraping his name off the door. Bruce asks the man, "What do you mean put on leave?" To which the maintenance man replies, "Look, all I heard is hanging out with the Batman has them looking at Dent differently, and all the folks he put away too." We then see Bruce on the phone walking with a crowd through the streets of Gotham as the combat journal tells us, "I got a message from Mom yesterday. I keep opening it, then hanging up before it starts. Deep down, I know I'm just saving it for when I need to hear it most. What's freaking happening to me?" So at this point, with this series of flashbacks, you're really starting to see the impact of everything that's transpired from issue 1 all the way through 17 weigh heavily on Bruce. And slowly, Scott Snyder is starting to paint the picture of a dangerous mix of regret, sadness, and loneliness pushing Bruce towards an edge, and likely a breaking point that's ruled by anger. But from here, we return to the present where we find Absolute Poison Ivy destroying Batman while telling him, "I'll take it all the way, Batman. That soft part, that pain, we're becoming one, you and me. I can feel how much you're hurting." But this just sends Batman into a rage and he just starts flailing his one remaining chainsaw while screaming, "Get out of my head!" But Poison Ivy just responds by turning her arm into a plant-like cannon and firing spore creatures at him while telling him, "No, join me. Be my knight. Together we can beat them. Look at you, spines that stab like a cholla cactus, wings that slash like an ostrich, the will of a virus. Just breathe me in." As we simultaneously see more spore plumes explode into green gas all around Batman. But despite Poison Ivy's pleading, Batman just spits while staring at her. So she laughs and says, "And the stubbornness of a cockroach. All right then, I'll drag you into the light. one way or another. But the comic then takes us back to New Mexico, where we finally learn what's happening with Martha Wayne and the Absolute Court of Owls. And as they remove the bag from Martha's head, we see that they're at a base in the middle of nowhere, and one of the owls starts to question Martha, saying, "You knew the rules about communication and the consequences for breaking them. So why, Martha?" To which she replies, "Because something is happening in Gotham right now, something that I believed was worth the risk." The same owl responds, "That's not your decision to make. You put us all in danger by reaching out." Another member of the court then steps in and asks, "What gives you the right? This is how we've survived, just because you were one of us." But Martha cuts him off, and what she says next takes this whole thing to another level, because she tells him, "I wasn't just one of you. I was a Talon, the best Talon. You all know what I did for the court. That's what gives me the freaking right. And maybe surviving was enough before, but the truth is Batman changed that." So that is another insane reveal by Scott Snyder in this Absolute Batman series. Not only was Martha Wayne Batman's mother a member of the Court of Owls, she was a Talon, or as she puts it, the best Talon. And if you, for some reason, do not know what a Talon is in regard to the Court of Owls, firstly, are you even a Batman fan? And second, they are the most elite, highly trained assassin and enforcer for the Court of Owls. The Talon is basically the one who shows up when something or someone is threatening the court or standing in its way. So yeah, those two sentences alone completely changed everything we thought we knew about this Absolute version of Martha Wayne. And it's just crazy. Anyway, in response to Martha saying that Batman has changed everything in Gotham, the owl tells her, "Then you can blame Batman for what's about to happen." However, we jump back to the present yet again, where we find Batman still trying to dodge Poison Ivy's attacks. This city is an ecosystem, a living thing. You introduce something new, something foreign, and now the city is reacting. But instead of going further, you try to hold it back. Even now, looking for that weapon, the screaming gun behind you, like the one they used in that place to separate my cells. As we see Batman looking over his shoulder at the ultrasonic cannon he lost in the last issue. But that brief distraction cost him big, because Poison Ivy stabs him through the back while saying, "Stop denying what you want. You wished to reshape things, just like I did. You blew the seeds across the city, but now you're afraid of what you've sown? Well, change is coming whether you like it or not." And bro, how was Batman gonna survive the way that he just got shanked? Dude just got skewered in multiple locations. Regardless, the next page takes us back to the flashbacks of Bruce, where we find him working his construction job. But in this series of flashback panels, we are finally getting more information about who sent Alfred Pennyworth to Gotham in the first place. Because remember, someone he works for or used to work for sent him to Gotham to track the Joker. And up until this point, we have never learned who that employer was. But we see Alfred talking to who I can only imagine is a member of the Court of Owls at this point, and they say to him, "There's been a shift in plans, Agent Pennyworth. Your new assignment," but he interrupts saying, "I'm looking at the bloody assignment. But why? I've been on Grimm for over 5 years, and now he's here in Gotham, and you suddenly want me on?" To which they reply, "Yes, on Batman. That's the target." To which Alfred replies, "And if I refuse?" And the mystery person tells him, "Let's just say no more enjoying Amir's sweet tea." However, before the conversation can go any further, Harley Quinn opens the door behind him saying, "Al?" Pennyworth quickly turns and says, "Miss Quinn, what are you doing here?" And she tells him, "I'm here to help with this whole Batman thing. We all are." As we see other members of the Red Hood gang behind her. Then on the next panel, we see Absolute Dick Grayson sleeping on a couch saying to himself, "All right, Dick, tomorrow you do something about him." So basically, this two-part Seventh Kingdom story arc, but specifically issue 18, is setting up everything to come in the next major story arc for Absolute Batman. And that includes what we all know by now, which is that in Absolute Batman issue 20, we are finally getting introduced to Absolute Robin, or the Absolute Robins. Scott Snyder has been teasing several possibilities, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. Anyway, the comic stays on Bruce as we see him leaving his job, with his co-workers saying, "Oh, come on, Bruce, we're trying that new Batman-themed bar on 39th. Come on." But Bruce just ignores them, while the Combat Journal tells us, "I smile. Tell them another time. I hope they can't see my fist shaking. I look at the sidewalk. They're 200 years old." But the story pattern continues to fracture here as we see Bruce walking down the streets of Gotham, as Poison Ivy's narration now says, "You can walk around with your head down, blind to it, writing in your little book, but it's happening." But we are then taken to a party at the mansion of Jack Grimm, and we see Grimm dancing as Poison Ivy continues to say, "And they see it, believe me. The ones whose plans you disrupted, the ones who hate change. The worst of them is here. Their leader, their horned king, looking down and smiling from somewhere high above us." And this is followed by a panel of Bruce's Bruce's face as he grits his teeth and says, "It's still Gotham. Steel. Limestone." But when we turn the page, we go back to the battle between Absolute Poison Ivy and Batman. But now we find that she's got him completely wrapped up in her vines and she's towering over him while saying to him, the tricks he plays, the deals and packs and bargains, carving up the world with his minions, we have to stop him. All those years he kept me locked away, scrambled by those noise guns pulled apart, but then one day, there you were, like some wild beast running naked through my biome. And I knew if I had the chance, I would join with you because Grim, he's coming for you, just like he came for me, just like he comes for anything that threatens change, isolates it, locks it away. He's making moves as we speak. I can feel it. Maybe if you were willing to evolve on your own to become what's needed, you might be able to stop him, Batman. But you're not. Don't worry though, when I release these spores from this place, I'll make you something new. I'll make everyone new. We'll be strong, beautiful, a new kingdom, and together we'll stop him. And then we'll make that first wish come true. And as she's saying this, we see these massive mushroom-like trees rise up out of the ground and begin to release these huge plumes of green spore clouds, while Batman simultaneously pleads, "Don't do this." But from here, we transition yet again back to Bruce as he walks down the streets of Gotham. But this time, just as he's lashing out at someone wearing a hoodie with the Batman symbol on it, he runs into Jim Gordon. And Jim tells him, "Bruce, calm down." To which Bruce replies, "Mr. Gordon, what are you doing here?" And Jim tells him, "I need to talk to you." However, Bruce says, "No offense, but the last thing I want to talk about is you and my mom." But Jim responds, "It's not about your mom. She's a grown woman, I'm a grown man, and nature is nature. But this is about you, son." To which Bruce replies, "Me?" And Jim tells him, "Bruce, I know." At which point Bruce nervously responds, "What are you talking about? Know what?" But Jim doesn't respond. He just stares sternly at Bruce until he says, "Oh." This basically shocks Bruce out of his anger, so Jim invites him to sit. And as he does, he starts to ask Jim how he knew. And I love Jim's response here because Absolute Batman keeping his identity as secret in the Absolute universe is like Superman walking around as Clark Kent and no one recognizing him. Jim just tells him, "Son, 6'9" and 400 pounds doesn't exactly blend in. And I did pull you out from a pile of bats one time." Bruce then asks him, "Does my mom know?" To which Jim replies, "Believe it or not, I don't think so. Her brain's engaged in some Olympic level gymnastics to avoid the obvious. Self-defense, I suppose." Bruce then asks, "Are you here to tell me to stop?" And Jim replies, "Do you want me to?" Bruce pauses for a moment and tells him, "Right now, I don't know. He's just getting so big, Mr. Gordon. I wanted Batman to affect the city, to shine a light on things, but I didn't." Jim then chimes in and asks, "Expect him to become the light himself? The big old beacon in the sky?" Bruce then gets even more serious and turns to Jim saying, "The things I'm up against too. It feels like to win, I have to become something tougher, meaner, something." And Jim finishes by asking, "Darker?" And Bruce answers, "Yeah. Any advice?" But Jim tells him, "From me? No way. I'm just an old man in love with your mom, son. But I'll give you the advice someone else gave me when I was in a similar situation to yours. Someone much smarter than me, my daughter." Which of course is Barbara Gordon, who is a police officer in this universe and was the only officer to survive entering the building to face Poison Ivy. Batman actually found her and pulled her out of the ecosystem and tried to send her packing with a piece of his cape. But on the next page, we return to the present where we see that Barbara Gordon has come back to return the favor, and she frees Batman from Ivy's vines. Batman looks at her and says, "Officer Gordon?" To which she responds, "You can thank me by swearing never to pull that kind of crap again." Now SWAT is about to bust in with a dozen double augied up MUCs, so we need to get out of here before she figures out your... But Batman refuses, saying, "No, the spores. She's gonna release them across the city." So he runs and picks up the ultrasonic cannon that he was looking at earlier while continuing to say, "We have to destroy them. I have the MUC, but do you have any explosives?" To which she replies, "No, but 2 flights down I saw." But Batman cuts her off saying, "There's no time, but if we can..." At which point Poison Ivy hears him and responds, "If you can do what? What can you possibly do?" And here I thought we could be allies, but I was wrong. But guys, as we turn the page, we are taken back to New Mexico, where the member of the Court of Owls is now holding a gun to Martha's head. And he tells her, "I'm sorry, Martha. We really hoped you'd listen to reason." But she responds, "I'm happy to disappoint you then, because I always believed we owls were never supposed to listen to reason." He then tells her that's enough. But Martha defiantly replies, "No, it's not. We stood for something once, remember? We were the ones who fought back from the shadows against the rich and powerful. We were warriors fighting for a better world, proud, wise, vicious owls. And yes, they crushed us. He crushed us. So now maybe we need to be something new, but not by hiding or by changing who we are at our core. If that's what we're about, you might as well pull the trigger. However, before we get to see how Martha's motivational speech lands, we are taken back to Bruce and Jim's conversation in Gotham. And Bruce asks, what was Barbara's advice? To which Jim replies, when I became mayor, I was terrified, Bruce. I had my plan, my agenda, but suddenly the whole city was looking to me to do so much more, to be more. And the critics, they kept attacking me for being too soft, too local, too much of a people person. I was all torn up. Maybe to be a good mayor, I had to forget all the hippy dippy stuff your dad and mom and I loved and become something tougher, colder, meaner. But one night, Babs, she was 16 at the time, studying for a biology test. She found me on the balcony in my robe, staring out at the city, and she said something to me. We then get a panel of Batman taking aim at Poison Ivy with the ultrasonic cannon while saying, Ivy does climb, but it also clings. It holds on, Dr. Isley. You don't want to lose that last piece of yourself, do you? Referring to her heart. And the panels continue to intercut from here between all these different scenes as we see Martha screaming, we are better than this, followed by Jim continuing to tell Bruce, Barbara said, Dad, a tree grows tallest when you care for its roots. SWAT then enters Poison Ivy's ecosystem as Batman yells, destroy the spores, Dr. Isley, now. And Poison Ivy, terrified that Batman is going to fire on her, screams, all right, followed by a panel with a massive explosion showing all the different spore plants being destroyed. We then see Jim finish telling Bruce, you have good roots, son. I know you'll make the right choice when the time comes. However, I am not so sure that things are about to turn out the way that Jim thought when he said that. Because in the next panel, as Poison Ivy is freaking out because Batman made her destroy the spores that were going to complete her plan, she screams, you fool! We could have saved everyone, everything, climbed so high, made it better. You've only doomed yourself. You're just small and terrestrial and weak and human. And this, my friends, is where we see Absolute Batman take a turn as he responds by saying, yes, I have been, but not anymore, while switching the ultrasonic cannon to full power. This is then followed by a panel of a shocked look on Martha Wayne's face back in New Mexico, and she starts to say, what are you, as she realizes the owl is about to pull the trigger. And that is followed by a panel of Absolute Batman pulling the trigger himself and destroying the heart of Poison Ivy, the last living part of Pamela Isley, as she screams, no, my heart, followed then immediately by showing the owl actually pulling the trigger and seemingly shooting Martha Wayne in the head. Now, I have to believe there is no way they just offed Martha Wayne like that. But this Absolute Batman title has been insane so far. It's been borderline the Game of Thrones of the DC universe. So honestly, I'm not going to put anything past Scott Snyder at this point. Also, talk about things that would push Batman completely over the edge, while simultaneously establishing the Court of Owls as true villains. But having said that, it very much seems like Scott Snyder is trying to establish the Court of Owls as a force for good in this evil world, an organization that joins forces with Batman to push back against Jack Grimm and his ilk. So while that is obviously the most likely scenario, it would just be nuts if they actually just killed Martha Wayne. Anyway, we then see the SWAT team approach a completely wrecked Poison Ivy as she sprawled out on the floor saying, I'll kill you, Batman, you monster. At which point we go to Absolute Batman and Barbara Gordon, who are at the edge of the building, and just before Batman jumps out, Barbara asks him, what happened back there? You destroyed her heart anyway, Batman. She then holds up the cowl she's been using to communicate with him over the past several issues and says, you know, maybe you should take this back. So Batman pauses and tells her, she said to fight what's coming, I needed to evolve. I just took her advice. Maybe we all should, as he jumps out of the building. And the final 2 pages of this issue sets the tone for what's coming next and makes it abundantly clear that Batman has decided it is time to go dark. And to drive that point home, we get panels showing Ozzy, Eddie, Harvey's office, and even the sewers where Waylon is now back to normal. He's still huge, but he's no longer a crocodile because apparently the arrowhead worked, but Bruce is no longer showing up to beg them for their forgiveness. Then finally, we get a full page look at Absolute Batman standing atop a tower high above Gotham and holding his axe when he finally starts to play the message that his mother left him earlier. But just as the message begins to play, Bruce deletes it. Guys, there's nothing left that I can say here. This is one of the craziest comic issues I have ever read in my life, inside one of the greatest comic titles I have ever read in my life. And that might not be your opinion, and that's fine. Everybody's got their taste, but that is definitely my opinion. I can honestly tell you, I cannot remember the last time I enjoyed a comic series as much as I am into this Absolute Batman run. And there seems to be no slowdown in sight, because in issue 19, we're getting our first introduction to Absolute Scarecrow, who looks terrifying as well. And then that's going to be followed with issue 20 and the introduction of Absolute Robin or Robins. We also got our first look at Absolute Penguin and Absolute Two-Face during MegaCon this past week, where our boy Eris actually hosted the Absolute Batman panel, and both of those two villains look insane. The concepts are great, the setups are great, the payoffs are great, the art is amazing. And again, this is all my opinion, but I know there's a lot of you who share it. So if you're not following us here at Variant and you don't have your notifications set up, make sure to hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you know when our episode on the next issue drops. But I'll remind you one last time, if you didn't get a chance to grab a first print copy of this issue before they sold out, you can snag one right now at variantcomics.com, but it's a very limited supply, so don't procrastinate. Also, please let me know what you guys think of this issue and series down in the comments below. Other than that, I will see you next time when we talk about all things comics.